Greetings, ladies and metal gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Basic Economics, written by Uzu95 Supian. Sol System 02252450. We are now entering the Sol System, exiting hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. With a captain's announcement and a blinding flash of light, a luxurious space liner escorted by a small flotilla of warships enters the edges of the most active system in the galaxy. Navigating their way from a kilometer-sized structure simply known as the Sol Gate, the flotilla began their satellite journey into the inner parts of the system, cruising along with the most of civilian traffic displaced out of their way for security reasons. Mobak Pyle stretched his arms and adjusted himself in his seat. Despite his years of diplomatic experience, the Zeltic always felt uneasy as he went in and out of hyperspace. He never knew why, but he suspected the transition messed with his ocular cybernetics, making them pulse in a cyan blue color. Mobak massaged his temple, then looked at the view screen in his cabin. A short video was playing, detailing the history and important points of interest in the solar system. Tourism ads and music tailored to his species played as they showcased natural wonders of Earth's biosphere, urban sprawl of the nascent ecumenopolis of Mars, and the floating cities of Venus. While Mobak would have loved to visit his friends in the system, he was not there for pleasure. Rising from his bed, Mobak began to dress himself as he prepared what he was going to say. After a moment's hesitation, he dressed in a tan suit with Zeltic embroidery and had decorated his 2 horns. The choice was calculated, in an attempt to appear more like a human to a person that he was going to meet. Thankfully, he did not need to alter much, as their 2 species resembled each other in many ways, both in body type and facial features. As Mobak put in symbols of his office, he recalled a fond memory of his human counterpart talking about these fictional creatures called satyrs, and how he looked like one. Unfortunately, he was not going to meet his friend today. With his preparations finished, the diplomat exited his cabin and prepared for his meeting. As he entered the lounge, his assistant began laying out the situation and talking. As things stand, the Secretary-General is a relatively newcomer to the scene. She is somewhat of a political outsider, but became famous during a Cerberus scandal, making her the center of attention as the previous ruling party was getting investigated. She is a big supporter of the anti-corruption efforts and more social welfare programs. Have any of our previous contacts remained in place? Mobak asked. The only ones that have remained so far are the Minister of Agriculture and the head of the Centauri Heavy Industry. Many of the rest have been arrested and forced to resign, but we still have many contacts in the civilian sector. Have they traced the source? As far as we know, they suspect it was a series of shell companies made by the Hannigan government. They have no reason to suspect otherwise. Good, good. What about her stance on the war? Where does she lie? So far, the UNE has been in favor of the war, but the public is divided. They are split between an ardent war supporters and more pacifist and isolationist movements. Reports say that there is a significant portion of moderates that can be swayed to our cause. As for the Secretary, she has not taken an explicit stance, but she seems to be in our favor. It is imperative that we have the UN support. We will not have the necessary manpower and infrastructure to resist the enemy if they continue to sit out of the war. Do we have any word on that human admiral? What was his name? Bowers. Fleet Admiral Matthew Bowers. Right. The traitor. Has he been court-martialed yet? The Secretary-General has postponed his trial until a later date. She wished to discuss the matter personally with you later. So be it. We have more candidates that can fill this role. The chairman has made it clear he wishes for the Zeltic to take command. That may be difficult. Bowers is a veteran, well known to speak his mind to the press, and is well respected across the entire Confederacy. That can always change. Once we talk to the Secretary, Bowers will have to face justice. We must make it clear that the traitor cannot be allowed to resume command. Once the court-martial is done, we can work on diminishing his standing. I believe we still have some contacts in the Sterilite News, right? Yes, sir. Good. They are going to be invaluable in showing how much of a traitor that man is. We should not frame it that way, sir. Treason is a strong word for what he did. At best, he can be accused of obstructing the war effort and lacking the will to fight. If we frame it as a forced retirement, I believe we can allow the Secretary to save face. Perhaps you are right. It's never a good idea to tell a human what they should do. If we can maintain our trade relations and get the damn humans in this war ready, I believe the chairman will be most pleased with us. Indeed. I have already prepared the necessary gifts and resources for you to offer. Don't get too hasty. Presidents come and go all the time, but reformers like her are very dangerous. We should abstain from approaching directly. During these next couple of days, we should try and branch out. We need to feel the waters and find allies who are more approachable. Understood, sir. We'll see who we can snag. As Mobeck listened to the rest of his assistant's report, he mentally prepares himself for what would come next. He was nervous, but he was confident that his years of experience would carry him through. After all, if there is one thing the Zaltec can count upon, was that every being in the galaxy, no matter how moral or altruistic, wanted things. Everyone had a price, and in the mind of this career diplomat, the humans were no different. After a couple hours, the Zaltec cruiser docked at a giant space station orbiting Neptune, built upon old refinery loops orbiting the planet. The old station had been expanded 100-fold, turning it from a distant extraction outpost to a bustling city in the sky that it was today. The Universal Neptune Economic Center was a hub of economic and diplomatic meetings for all sapient species in the galaxy, with a vast array of amenities and creature comforts for, well, any type of creature. This station was the go-to place for business transactions and diplomatic meetings, while also housing a significant population of civilian inhabitants. Mobeck exited the ship as camera drones hovered around him, giving a live feed to news agencies all across the galaxy. He walked with determined purpose, trying his best to walk a fine line between confident and aggressive, while praying to whatever god might exist that his eyes would not malfunction. He extended his arm and shook hands with the Secretary-General of the United Nations of Earth, Lucia Madrigal. After a round of pleasantries and posing for the camera shots, the two of them left the dock and headed to a private transport shuttle, letting their entourage and bodyguards deal with the media and the civilians witnessing the event. As the shuttle effortlessly traveled through the skyscrapers and buildings, Mobeck could only marvel at the sights. He saw species from all across the galaxy, mingling, commuting, and trading alongside the humans. The neon lights of the various ads for Zaltec products and companies illuminated the shuttle interior as Mobeck gazed out. After their shuttle ride ended, both the diplomat and secretary entered the main forum center, where they could have some privacy, speak candidly, and finally get down to business. They arrived at a pristine room adorned by a flag of the United Nations of Earth and the Zaltec Commonwealth. Alongside them were flags of the members of the Confederated Sapient Nations, the multi-species alliance with which the two nations were a part of. You used the gates to travel here, did you not? The smiling woman asked. Indeed, Madam Secretary. These new gates of yours are doing wonders in the shortening of the journey, replied Mobeck. Well, the galaxy is going to see more of these as the years go by. We plan on building more. I presume your government has received the proposal. Yes. It might be a while until it gets approved. Many other transport consortiums are protesting the proposal. They fear their lines of work may become slowly obsolete. I've heard, but like Mukal once said, progress is not working on what is, but on what is to come. We actually plan on expanding it all across the galaxy. The Zaltec did his best to emulate the human smile and nodded. Very astute, quoting one of our most revered philosophers to justify your disruption, he thought to himself. He studied the human in front of him, tan skin, black hair in a tight bun, and a black formal suit. She was a relative newcomer to the position, and that made Mobeck's superiors nervous. Recently elected after a wave of scandals and resignations hit the previous government, Lucia was elected on a platform of anti-corruption and reform. Yes, of course. The Quasar Lane Initiative, as you call it. I must say, it is a very ambitious plan to build that many gates outside your own territory. ambitious yet somewhat disruptive. Then again, there have been many disruptions lately. While we understand that the transition of power is a difficult time, you should not be afraid to reach out for help. As long-standing allies, we should do our best to make sure things run smoothly. Oh, I've had plenty of help from the rest of the Confederation. A few weeks ago I entertained Michelok, the Quanti Prime Minister. It was considerate of her to travel all this way, especially with a war going on. In fact, the past few months have been very hectic. I've had to meet every single leader in the Confederacy. Indeed, you have met delegates from all members save for us. I guess you were, how do you say it, saving the best for last? He asked carefully, not wanting to outright ask why the most prominent member state of the Confederacy was invited last. Though if he called upon us sooner, I'm sure Chairman Strown would have gone personally. He regrets not being able to attend. With the current state of the war and your fleets being in the way of that they are, the lines of communication are a bit too dangerous for an official visit. Lucia tilted her head, and then with a gesture to the Zaltek recognized as a smug amusement, revealing a slight tinge of malice in her eyes. That is a diplomatic way of saying it's our fault our navies have rebelled. All the more reason Stroud should have come here in person, rather than sending you to deal with me if you was way too busy. Mobak stiffened, aware that he made a mistake. I meant no insult. It is just unheard of that so many of our admirals and officers refuse to carry out their orders in a time of war. The lanes are not as, secure as— This is not a war. It is a mistake, she interjected. Pardon? This war has no clear objective other than to antagonize the Hanukkah and destroy their capacity for warfare. Regardless of, unpopularity of this current state of affairs, the UNE is a member of the Confederacy. It was voted upon, and your predecessor committed their forces for the common good. Voted? That's not how I heard it. Chairman Strown abused his authority and exploited a loophole to pass the emergency measure, leaving us no time to consider the options. We were attacked. You have seen the recordings of the Kamari incident. The Hanukkah struck first. You know, Lucia said while interrupting the diplomat, I've had a long day of talking to my chiefs of staff, and if there is one thing you need to learn about me, is that I don't play stupid games. With a flick of her finger, she sent a wireless message from her tablet directly to Zaltek's augmented reality interface. An encrypted message appeared in the corner of his eyes, and he silently opened it. The video streamed directly into his mind, showing another Zaltek, like himself, sitting at a table talking to a human. With now visible confusion, the diplomat asked, What am I looking at? You are witnessing the debriefing of the Rochelle Goat, captain of the Kamori. He has, let's say, a great deal of information on the subject of this incident. The Zaltek's face went still, trying to hide his nervousness. Let us dispense with this theatre pile and get down to it. I brought you here because this is a crisis of potentially catastrophic proportions. If word gets out that this was a false flag incident, it could lead to the dissolution of the Confederacy itself. This proves nothing. The captain died in the attack. That's not— Even if that were true and this was just a paid actor, the fallout would ruin us. Our net has already filled with conspiracy theories and rumors, and they have no idea how close they are to the truth. This scandal would destroy any credibility the Confederacy has and give the Hanukkah and their allies the leverage they need to bury us with sanctions. I hope you understand how displeased we are about this entire affair, she said icily. You can't be serious. Revealing this now would only elicit a conflict and embarrass us to the galactic community. You must not reveal this. It is imperative that— Who said I was going to tell? She said calmly. So, you agree? We should not disclose this to the public, then? Lucia stared at the alien with piercing, dark eyes, analyzing the man from top to bottom. Mobek had never felt more nervous in his 23 years of service to the Commonwealth. Without even raising her voice, she had made this diplomat squirm and even stand up from his seat without even realizing it. After what seemed like an eternity, she finally spoke. To put it in a way that you might understand, everything has a price. Mobak sat down and listened. When the Quinti and the UN founded the Confederacy, we had bright hopes for the future. My predecessors worked tirelessly to elevate the nations that upheld our values, liberty, equality, tolerance. All of this to promote a vision of a world of peace and prosperity. Unfortunately, not everyone can be persuaded with words, and many seek to conquer and oppose rather than negotiate and coexist. We are no saints. We know what it is like to fight. Just ask the Damana or the Tharian when they tried to threaten our security. But when we made this alliance and invited you in, it was to be a bulwark of hope and order against the oppression and chaos.
That sounds very admirable. It is one of the reasons we Zaltek have joined.
And yet, as we've grown larger, certain members have wanted to take a more active role in the galaxy. These last few decades have been with constant warfare, intervening with the Krenshini, the liberation of Terran, and even dismantling of the Urenthi kingdom.
All for the greater good. The Urenthi Republic is now a proud member of our confederacy. Surely you must know the kind of power our alliance wields.
I'm not naive, Pyle. I know that the UN is one of the largest players here. Our contributions to the Confederacy Navy far outweigh most of the other members.
Well, we Zaltek have been funding the Confederacy Navy for years. Surely you can't claim that the UN does everything. That's ludicrous. A good portion of the ships have been built by other members, not just by the UN. All ships outfitted with the latest tech Zaltek Industries can provide.
Who provides the fuel, File? Who provides the necessary infrastructure to feed, house, and train all of these sailors and soldiers? Who provides the most soldiers?
Lucia brought up a holodisplay showcasing the graphs of economic outputs of the various members of the Confederacy. All numbers and figures displayed most members as equals, except for the two biggest outliers of the group.
We do not mind putting in more than we take out in this alliance, and we do recognize the contributions of each of our allies, especially from the Zaltek. But the UN will not bankroll endless interventions in wars and expansion, no matter how idealistic the cause.
Mobek took a deep breath as he tried to reason with the human. I believe you have made your point, Madam Secretary. It still does not change the fact that we are at war, and neither side wishes to quit. The Confederate Navy is powerful, and Hanukkah and their allies do not hold a candle to our strength. But if this general strike goes on any longer, our enemies will begin to enter our core territory. What we need is decisive action to end the Hanukkah threat once and for all. My government has invested too much in this war to stop, and as one of the most affluent members of the Confederacy, we will endeavor to pursue this course of action. Should you oppose us in this, we can and will leverage our financial institutions to sanction you.
You would threaten us?
Not threaten, we caution you. I'm just stating the fact of the matter. You and the Quinty have founded this alliance, but in the last decades, we Zaltek have made many friends and have brought in many new partners. Our influence extends to non-members as well, so I would caution you against any more disruptive actions.
Sounds like a threat to me, so let me give you one in return. Does the name Mareshi Corporate Embassy mean anything to you?
Mobek's eyes widened in fear, with what little confidence he had regained now fully drained from his face.
I thought so. You may have noticed many of the previous members of my government are now under arrest. We traced it back to a subsidiary of this investment firm. I gotta say, you really impressed us. Who knew such a nondescript banking consortium could hold sway over a quarter of our economy?
Lucia chuckled to herself as she kept her eyes locked on the diplomat.
Bribery, corruption, unfettered capitalism. It's almost cute how you thought that it would work. Did you think that we would never experience such things? We may have arrived late to the galactic scene, but we have had those concepts for centuries. These methods are not new to us, and, if I'm being honest, the fact that my predecessor let you get this far is infuriating to me.
Lucia leaned in, lowering her voice and staring right into Mobek's eyes.
Look, I'll keep things brief. We know who you paid off, we know where our weapons went to, and who got them, and we know that you have been manipulating the stock of, let's say, 330 different companies from all across the galaxy. You have successfully driven every domestic and international competition out of UN space, and you used our products, our resources, and our tax rates to maintain your economic supremacy. But here's the thing. That ends now. We ran the numbers, and it turns out you need us more than we need you.
We, Mobek said while getting more and more flustered.
It would hurt us, no doubt. But we have massive infrastructure projects planned, and even if we do gain some unemployment, our people will have safety nets and alternatives. Unfortunately for you, your currency will freefall if you don't have access to our markets. And the last I checked, the last recession of yours really drained your foreign exchanges. Lucia crossed her fingers and leaned back in her chair as she continued. If you want to continue to have access to our market, the Commonwealth will have to accept our terms.
Well, what are your terms? Mobac asked apprehensively.
First off, a pardon for any admiral, officer, or enlisted personnel involved in the strike, and Admiral Powers reinstated as Supreme Allied Commander. Second, we begin peace talks and try out other diplomatic avenues. If nothing can be done, so be it. Powers will take charge and run this damn war the way it should be run. We'll drive back the Hanukkah to our original borders, and, if necessary, strike back. Third, Mauritia gets quietly dissolved by our Antitrust Commission, and your executives and agents leaving UN space within the end of the year. Expect more general economic reforms to come. Certain tax loopholes might not be around for much longer. And finally, in the next session of the Galactic Community, when we submit the Quasar Lane Initiative to the voting floor, the Zaltec will vote in favor and use their considerable influence to pressure other nations to do so. Is that clear?
I don't. The chairman will not be strong-armed into accepting an ultimatum. We need more time to talk things out. I'm sure it doesn't have to come to this. There are different ways that we can resolve our differences, if you'll only give us some time.
The way I see it, the Zaltec Commonwealth has two options. Either we come to an agreement and you accept certain concessions, or else.
Or else what?
We nationalize your industries, arrest your executive directors, dismantle Marishi, and expose the Komori incident.
You're bluffing. You won't be able to manage the fallout if you do that.
Every illegal action taken happened while my predecessor was in office. I would be seen as an upstanding leader who wanted to do the right thing. My popularity would soar, and I would probably secure my re-election next year. When the Confederate presidential seat gets vacated, it will rotate back to the UN for the first time in 20 years. If I go forth with the platform of anti-war, responsibility, and reparations, I can salvage some of our credibility, though it may cost the Zaltec their status as a full member. But if that's what it takes, so be it. I know for a fact that every leader I spoke to in the past months would have no problem in letting you take the fall, no matter how much money you pay them.
Mobac sat in silence for a good minute as he weighed his options, his brow furrowed as he thought about Lucia's words and the dangerous waters he found himself in. With no other choice, Mobac played his final card. I think you vastly overestimate your position here, Madam Secretary.
Oh, really? Do go on, she said with a mild amusement.
We Zaltec have been at the reins of the galaxy commerce for centuries. We may not have quite the history of warfare, but we know how to fight, if not with weapons, with our wallets. If you continue on this course of action, the Commonwealth will have no choice but to sanction the UN. We'll force our business to leave and sell off any of the UN-related stocks. You do realize what will happen if we do so, do you? Your companies will flounder, your currency will reach rock bottom, and at the end of it all, you'll have to explain to your constituents why they have no jobs or money to show for your impertinence. All the while, we'll sit back and keep afloat with our savings.
Mobac sat, taking a deep breath, and tried his best not to flinch as she met her gaze. And yet, despite all the threats and all the bluster, she was still smiling. Like I said before, nothing you have said or done is new to us. You claim that we overestimate ourselves. I claim you have no idea how our economy even works. You want to send us into a recession. As cynical as it sounds, war is good for business. And if we end up fighting anyways, our defense industry and armies will be more than happy to expand. We don't fight, you lose. We fight, we win. Lucia sipped her glass of water as she chuckled. Currency devaluation, is that really the best you got, Pyle? Do you know what will actually happen? Our workforce will become the cost-effective labor in the market. The entire galaxy would have to compete with a large, well-educated and cheap workforce. And to top it all off, you picked the absolute worst time to threaten us. Just right before we are about to embark on the largest infrastructure project the galaxy has ever seen. We are not going to have a job shortage, and the common citizen has enough welfare to get by, even if our salaries are low.
That is only a stopgap measure. You can't rely on that forever.
Of course not. We are not so short-sighted. That's why we have diversified our portfolio. Lucia pressed something on her tablet, and a hollow display in front of them changed to reveal a dizzying amount of information. As Mobac's eyes scanned the information, his blood ran cold.
This can't be. This is
257 Zaltec companies, all of which are publicly traded in the Galtec market. We have stock percentages ranging from 5 to 15% in some cases. all of them legally purchased and dispersed. If we wanted to, we could sell them all, and you could kiss your dividends goodbye. Oh, and don't even think about freezing them. If word gets out that the Zaltec are closing access and preventing stock trading, everyone will panic and sell as fast as they can, and we both know how that story ends." The secretary leaned back in her chair, observing the diplomat intently, but with a satisfied look on her face. Mobak was anything but satisfied, and he felt like he really needed one of those human alcoholic drinks.
"Is there any way that I can make you reconsider?" he asked quietly. "It would be seen as incredibly disruptive if our two nations were at odds at a time like this."
"We have no desire to start this trade war. If we can continue our business and maintain this alliance, we would be happy. But here is what you need to understand. There was a time where we, the junior partners in this relationship, but that time has passed. We have grown, and we have planned, and we have adapted. We know we are the new players on the galactic stage, but we are here, and we will be making our mark on the galaxy. You built the banks, we built the roads. You built the ships, we built the ports. You have connected the galaxy through trade, but we have the resources to keep it going. So, if the Commonwealth wants to keep doing business as usual, I would urge you to cooperate."
"I need some privacy and a secure channel to Chairman Strown," he said after a while.
"By all means, take your time."
1 hour later, Mobak quietly sagged down in his chair after having spent the last hour or so getting yelled at and berated by Chairman Strown. In a rare display of pity, or perhaps circulated manipulation, Secretary Madrigal offered the diplomat the glass of cereal juice. Mobak would have liked to know how they knew it was his favorite drink in times of great stress, but he suspected that he would not like the answer. After contemplating the contents of his glass and contemplating the words of his terrifying woman, he resigned himself with a simple nod. End of story. There is a new legend on the horizon. Blueberry Cat has taken the T6 Patreon spot. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say that. I would just like to thank our T5 members, Lord Azrical, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Drexoon WRE, Blueberry Cat, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, and Leslie 517. Thank you very much.